Welcome back to Columbus Brick by Brick, the show where we uncover the people, projects, and ideas shaping the future of Columbus, Ohio, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, John Steyer, broker and owner of Steyer Real Estate Professionals, a boutique production-focused brokerage that values agent growth and helps them build a business with real impact. Every week, we sit down with the local leaders, innovators, and change makers who are laying the foundation for a stronger, smarter, and more connected city. Today, we're joined by Oscar Martinez, owner of the Martinez Group with Hanna Real Estate Services. Oscar is known for his standout branding and a powerful presence on social media. Oscar's built more than a client base, he's built a community with his past clients. And today in our conversation, we're going to explore Oscar's journey from humble beginnings to team leadership and how he scaled his vision with purpose and the role that social media, team values, and mentorship have played in shaping his success. So whether you're a real estate business owner or just passionate about the growth of Columbus, this episode is full of powerful insights, candid moments, and a whole lot of inspiration. So let's get into it. Well, Oscar, I want to thank you for being here today. It's great having you on the podcast, and you and I have known each other for a couple of years now, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you even better. But for people who may not know you that are listening or watching, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your journey is, and where you are today?
Definitely. So I'm a real estate agent. I specialize in residential real estate here in Columbus, Ohio. I've been a real estate agent for the last 4 years. I got started March 2021. Just recently, last year, I started my own real estate team. And we're growing slowly but surely here in the Columbus market. My story on how I got started in real estate is definitely a cool one, right? It's not the usual ones. I don't have a background in real estate. Everyone in my family, every man in my family works construction, except me. So I'm like the odd one out, right? When I was a junior in high school, my mom had a conversation with me and she was like, hey, you're either going to college and getting a degree or you're going to work construction. What is it going to be? And I told my mom right off the bat, Mom, I don't like college. I don't want to go to college. It's not going to be for me. So let's try construction, right? Tried construction my spring break in 2019. So my spring break, junior year of high school, everyone's having fun. I'm over here on roofs, replacing roofs with my uncle. I don't know how I got through it the 2 weeks, but it was tough. At the end of the 2 weeks, I told my uncle, hey, this is not for me. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Fast forward March 2020. We're at peak of COVID, right? I basically graduated high school in March. And I got a job as a mover at 2 Men in a Truck. And I'm back in the blue-collar industry, hard work, labor work, really hard on the body. And as hard as that job was, I really liked it for 2 reasons only. Number one, I got to see really cool houses every day, right? Being able to see the penthouses in Columbus, the huge, beautiful mansions, new construction, the lake houses and everything. So that was a really cool part of my job. But another part of my job that was really cool, my favorite part of my shifts at every shift was being able to back up the moving truck. And I'm tired, we're hungry, we're ready to get this over with, and we're about to unload the truck. And every so often, the wife and husband would be like out on the front porch, or they would be like taking photos and videos of us moving them into their first ever home.
Right.
And at the time, I didn't really think much of it, but like I could see the excitement. And the more I think about this and the more I tell the story, I think really what it was is I felt like I had importance in, being able to help them into a stepping stone of their new chapter. And I wanted to be a part of that. And I had no idea how. I just thought I was going to be being a mover and moving people in every single day. Until one day, older lady, we're moving her and her husband from a condo to their lake house in Apple Valley. And she comes up to me and she's like, hey, boys, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to college? You can't be a mover forever. What are you going to do?
Right.
And I said, I don't know. I love sales. I've always wanted to be in sales, but I can't do sales at this job. I can't be in a cubicle. And I love this job because I get to see new houses every day. And she's like, hey, you should be a real estate agent. You should sell houses. And she told me, hey, go here, call this person, go here to get your license, call this brokerage when you're done. And thought about it for 2 weeks, talked to mom and dad. They were like, yeah, let's do it. And got licensed in 21.
That's awesome. What a cool story. And the pipeline from mover to real estate agent makes sense, but I wonder how many people actually become an agent from that. I think that's a really great story. So you got licensed. and you found your footing. What was that journey like for you, going from mover to, okay, I'm a real estate licensed agent, to now you have your own team? Talk me through that.
Yeah, so the transition from being a mover to being a real estate agent, it wasn't immediate, right? So like as I was in school for real estate, I was more so like on the in-person, not really, because it's still COVID. So what I was doing was like the Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So I had classes throughout the week. So I couldn't be a full-time mover 40 hours a week and at the same time go to school. So what I would do was I left that job and I was working third shift at a warehouse Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I just did that job during the night while I got my license. So that was that shift from mover to that. And then right when I'm about to get my license, I had a part-time door-to-door like job to kind of build my sales background a little bit, right?
Sure.
Be able to know how to talk to people and handle objections and whatnot. That transition, I think, was the hardest one because I knew that was the last transition before I became a real estate agent. But I think it got to the point where I was doing that job and I was basically like a door-to-door salesman for like businesses, right? So it's not as hard going into a residential home and knock on the door and get the door slammed on your face. It's much more embarrassing going into a surprise center or something like that and say, hey, where's your manager? And they're like, get out of here. Don't come and solicit, right? So that transition was really hard because it was like, hey, I'm ready to be a real estate agent, but I'm not because it's scary. And I think I need to practice more, but I don't want to practice more because it sucks.
Yeah.
Right? But eventually when I did transition into becoming a real estate agent, I had like no idea as to what the ropes were. So by the grace of God, I landed at a brokerage that was more so, I called it like hand-holding, right? They teach you everything you need to know before you can run. And the first maybe 3 months, realistically the first year, but the first 3 months I was just a sponge, like soaking in all the information I could. How do I show a house? How do I do this? Just the basics, right? And then I think the hardest part for me was just being able to land that first client.
Yeah.
Right? In 2021, I'm sure you remember the market was like at its peak.
It was insane.
So if you had a little bit of experience, you had a way of just like selling a couple homes a month without doing anything, really. And that was really hard for me because I couldn't land one client and I'm looking around and people are selling 3, 4, 5, 6 houses a month. Like it's nothing.
Right.
And that was like a very hard transition for me to understand, hey man, that first client's coming. Just give it some time. The first 6 months of really becoming a real estate agent were the hardest for me. The biggest issue with real estate agents is cash flow when they first start, right?
Sure.
And
were you full-time at this time?
I was full-time, yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as
it's
I got
hard.
that,
How did you prepare for that?
Man, so I had 6 months of savings immediately. So I talked to the buddy of mine and I said, hey man, what do you recommend? Should I go in full-time? Should I get part-time? What should I do? He was like, go full-time. I had 6 months of savings, so I was good for March, April, May, June, July, and August. If by August I hadn't sold a house, I know I'd be back on that roof, doing roofs with my uncle, and I couldn't do that.
Right.
So
you were hungry.
I was hungry, man. I was like, I had literal desperation to win.
Yeah.
So something I did to keep the cash flow coming in was, it's funny to say this, I think I've shared this with you, DoorDash.
Yeah.
Right? So I would do DoorDash 5 times a week, Monday through Friday, and I think I had a goal of maybe $80 a day. It would net me a certain number a month to keep the bills paid, day-to-day expenses. And I would take my business card to the food order if I couldn't hand the order to the customer. Or I would hand deliver the order and then give a little pitch to the customer, like, hey, I'm doing some prospecting today. I'm a real estate agent in Columbus, Ohio. If you're anyone you know is looking to buy or sell, here's my card, right? And that kind of solved the cash flow problem. I'm not going to say I made $1 million doing that.
You're not still door dashing?
No, not anymore. By the grace of God, I stopped that, I think, in maybe like August of 21 after my first deal. But that's how I stopped doing having to worry about the cash flow, man. That's the biggest issue. But to bring it back home, the transition, every little step of this career so far has had a very difficult transition. I think the transition from being, hey, now you know the ropes, to, hey, now you're out of like literal starving mode into, okay, now let's scale. It's come with its own challenges every single time. 2021 was just learning things. 2022 was, all right, how do we find our ideal client? In 2022, I was all in with investors. And then in 23, I was out of investors. Now I want to do residential buyers.
What was the reason for that transition for you?
So investors, I love them, right? I think a lot of people like them is because they're very analytical. There's no emotions.
It's black
to it.
and white.
Yeah. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. What people don't understand is when you're doing a lot of volume with one specific investor, what matters to them is time, right? So if you're not available on a Saturday at 7 p.m. to send an offer for them, they're going to call the next agent in line. And if that other agent in line does it better than you or faster than you just one time, they're going to go with that other agent. So loyalty with investors really isn't there unless you want to be like an on-call person, realistically 18 hours a day. And I figured that out pretty quickly when one of my investors that I did a lot of deals. I think I did maybe 8 deals with this person in 2022. Started using another person about 2 times in a row. And I'm like, what's going on? And he was like, look, man, that one time you were in Mexico, this person was able to help me out. And from now on, I mean, it's just a matter of who can get it done faster. So I was like, all right, well, I'm working harder, making less money because the houses are cheap.
Right.
I don't like the fact that there's no loyalty behind it. Let me try to find another avenue. So that was that transition of that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you had 6 months of runway in which you had to get a deal done. Yeah. What was that first deal like for you?
Oh, man. I remember like it was yesterday. You know, I got this first client from an open house. And when I first got started, all I was doing on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, was open houses. And it was a family that came in. They were relocating from South Carolina. And it was a diamond lead. Like they were pre-approved for a really nice budget. They had no idea where to look. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let me go show you some houses right after here. Book some houses to show them right after the open house. And then worked with them maybe for about 3-4 months. And it was hard, man, just trying to land, like I said, that first deal with them because now I've got my first client, but how can I get them in contract, right? Everything's going so fast. I mean, it's listed on the market.
It was so hard to get a buyer in contract back then. Yeah.
If you put a house up for sale, as long as it had a bathroom and a bedroom, it would be gone.
Yeah.
And it was just hard to negotiate with them, right? Like, I how can I feel confident telling you, hey, in order to win, you got to do this when I don't even know how to win? So eventually, I got them in contract on a new construction home. That fell out of contract because their lender really just didn't do a good job. And then again, I got them in contract right when they were about to give up on me around July, like the first or second day.
And you had to August.
I had until August, yeah. So it's funny because right around there, I remember this very, very vividly. In July, like the first or second day of July, I was headed to my friend's graduation party from high school. And I was in my car and I paid my bills for the month. And I saw I only had enough money saved for next month. And I'm just in the car and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I have nothing in the pipeline. There's nothing in escrow. Like this is it. You're going to be doing roofs like in the next 30 days.
In August.
In August, man, in the brutal heat of August.
Yeah.
And right then and there, I was like, all right, man, well, I don't know what to do. And I just started bawling down crying in the car, just out of frustration and anger and confusion, more so fear, right? That's really what it was. And I said a quick prayer to God, and I was like, look, man, if you want me to stay in this business, just give me a sign. It can be anything. It doesn't need to be $1 million. It just needs to be something. That 4th of July weekend, like 3 days later, 2 days later, I got that client in contract and then another investor client in contract that ended up closing 45 days later, which gave me a big break. I think my first 2 deals in August was around $490,000, which was a good payday for a first ever paycheck as a real estate agent.
Yeah, and that propelled you and allowed you to continue.
Yeah.
So what did the next year and 2 years look like for you? Where you've got your feet under you, and now you're becoming an actual agent in the marketplace, and you're doing deals. What was the journey like from then until now? You've formed your own team. Yeah.
So in 2022, I was able to, I guess, have my big break in 2022 as well, where I went my first year in 2021 from August to December only selling maybe 6 houses. And then from 2022, I think I sold 24, 25 houses, which is a huge jump.
Definitely.
I believe a big reason of that was I joined a really big real estate team you're well aware of. And once I was on that team, I learned a lot about, hey, Oscar, this is how you run a real estate business, right? So I'm very grateful for being able to be under the wing of the top producer, one of the top producers here in Central Ohio. And he taught me a lot of things. I'm like, hey, this real estate thing you're doing is like a literal business. You have to treat it like like a convenience store. Every lead that comes in, every lead that goes out, it's like your inventory. How do you track those things? You got to do that. And that's where I started to treat it like an actual business and have a business plan. And that projected me into going into any avenue I wanted to go. So in 2022, I wanted to do investors. 2023 was a really weird shift in the real estate market because this is where reality hit everybody. Like, hey, interest rates are actually starting to come back up. We're not going to be in 3%, 4% anymore. Now we're like at high fives.
That was
6.
a change in the market too.
Yeah, and we had to adapt, right? The leads that were coming in that were outbound from the team I was on started to slow down. The buyers started to creep out the market. So I sold less houses in 23. I think I sold maybe 18, 19 houses in 23, but I sold more in volume because now I'm doing primary residence. But in 23, I think I started to find my avenue of like, hey, I think in order to make this thing work, I have to have my own brand, right? So how do we develop that? And I started to study that as well. And then in 2024 last year is when I had a really weird like self-assessment of like, all right, I'm on this team, I'm doing well, I'm comfortable, the leads are coming in from the team lead, but I don't really like the sense of having to rely on outbound lead generation all the time. Let's switch this up and let's look at my numbers. Every lead I've sold over the last 6 months has been inbound. How can we generate more of that?
Right.
So in 2024, around spring, I had a conversation like in April with myself, my girlfriend, my friends, my business partners. Hey, what do you think about inbound lead generation versus outbound? And I had a really tough conversation on, would this make more sense? Should I stay here? And last year in June is where I was like, hey, you know what? Let's just cut the safety net and just go all in and just produce inbound and go on my own again. Yeah.
And so that strategy shift from outbound to inbound has done very well for you.
Yeah.
And anyone that knows you knows that your strategy of garnering inbound leads is through social media.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of videos. You're very prevalent on social media. What has that looked like for you? How did you ramp that up? And how has that performed for you?
Yeah, definitely. So the social media aspect of things is definitely like a key ingredient to the inbound lead generation thing. Realistically speaking, I think my bread and butter is word of mouth referrals, and whatnot, and you know that as well. But I think Instagram plays a huge part of that. We've got different aspects of social media, but Instagram is really where I hold all my presence. And we ramped that up, or I ramped that up, maybe I'd say in 2023, late 2023. It's where I started to really take it seriously. So if you go on my Instagram right now, you can see all the professional videos and the edits and all of that stuff, but it wasn't always like that, right? Like I got on Instagram in 2021 when I was a new real estate agent, and I did like the silly graphics of trying to, hey guys, I'm a real estate agent, call me, right? Like any new real estate agent does the same thing because I didn't know how. I didn't know exactly how to use social media to benefit from it, right? So I think in 2022 was where I did a lot of learning as well, where I was like, all right, the social media thing should pay me out one way or another. How can we get more investors to me through social media? And I started to look at different people on Instagram. All right, what works for this guy? Let's try that out. Okay, that does work. Or let's try this out. Okay, that doesn't work. So just plug and play and try to see what works. And then in 2023 is when I found out about personal branding. And I'm like, all right, I want to be the go-to real estate agent for this. And this guy over here in Texas is the go-to real estate agent for that. What is he doing? And let me apply that.
I like that.
So there's one big real estate team in Texas that does really, really well. And I applied as much as possible from what they were doing to my business and my content, and it worked, right? In 23, I had my first viral video. I think it was 100 and some thousand views, and all of them were like in Central Ohio. So I'm like, all right, this is working, and let's do it again. And then I had another one that went really well, and I did it again, and I had another one that did maybe 90,000, and then the algorithm kind of stopped. But I love that feeling, that sense of like, hey, the exposure's working, And eventually it got to the point when I started my team last year where I was like, I've got too many things I'm doing. How can I delegate this and hire a media team to help me out here? And last year, maybe around, I think like summer, right when I started the team is when I hired a media team to help me produce all the content I produce. And we've been ramping that up a lot. Realistically speaking, every quarter we run a targeted ad to bring more eyes to my page. And then we nurture them through content marketing. So as far as ramping it up, The media team does all that behind the scenes. I can't take all the credit for it. They're awesome, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you put it together. I mean, and you're a part of that. You mentioned building a brand.
Yeah.
And you did that with purpose. What has that looked like, and how have you seen from when you decided to do it till now? What changes have you seen along the way?
Building a personal brand.
Yeah.
So I think the tricky part as real estate agents, we think we're professionals at everything, right? We're real estate professionals, realistically speaking. But we're not a brand in every sense of a real estate transaction, right? Like you've got commercial real estate, you've got leasing, you've got new construction, first time home, like you get the deal, right? And I think finding a personal brand for a real estate agent is tricky because they want to say, well, yeah, but I can also help out in this. But not really, right? Because working with you can say you work with investors, but do you know how to handle a 1031 exchange, right? Maybe not. And finding your personal brand as a real estate agent really comes down to one thing, and that is, what do you want people to think of when you're not in the room, right? What do you want your ideal client to look like? If you could have one client that you want to work with every single time, who would that be? And how do you want that client to think of you when you leave the room? And then brand yourself around that, right?
So niche down is what you're saying.
Oh, very niche down. Yeah. And my thing is new construction real estate. That's what I love. It's the best thing possible for first-time home buyers, in my opinion, and that's all I do, right? So my brand is I want to be a new construction real estate expert, right? So let me brand myself around that and really target that heavily. But one thing we're doing differently now is, okay, now I would like to think that I'm known as a real estate expert in that arena.
Yeah.
Now I need to switch it over and let people know, hey, I'm also a normal person, right? Like, let's be a little unedited, unscripted. Here's who I am behind the scenes and whatnot. So we're doing that as we go for the month of June as well. But as far as finding a personal brand, it's really niching it down to one thing. And then eventually you're going to have people come in and, oh, hey, by the way, do you also like list homes for sale? Yeah, I do, of course. And then you can get those other clients that come in. But a big issue I see with real estate agents, man, and you see it too probably, is they try to dabble at everything, and it's hard for them to have a personal brand.
Especially when you start, because you got to take what you can get.
Exactly, right.
But you are 100% accurate in that the more you niche down, when you're able to do so, the more people will view you as that, and the more business will flow through that.
Right.
I agree with you completely.
100%.
If you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I believe in building real estate businesses that are scalable and sustainable. And that's exactly what we help agents create at Steyer Real Estate Professionals. If you're an agent who's ready to grow and tired of spinning your wheels, then consider this. Growth is change. At Steyer Rep, we coach to your strengths, match tools to your style, and help you scale your business without burning out. And there's no fluff, there's no hang your license culture, just serious growth, real systems, and 100% commission when you cap. So head to steyerrep.com/join us to start the conversation, because it's time to go from where you are to where you belong. Yeah, so I would love to hear a little bit about what it was like for you starting a team, because I know that, you worked hard on building a brand for yourself, and then from there you've gone to, hey, actually, I would like to have a team, or maybe it just kind of happened.
Yeah. So as far as wanting to start a team, I didn't want to fit into the agenda of, I just like the big team, I can do it on my own, let's make it happen, because what usually happens is that team member doesn't understand how a team works and they end up failing, right? So the idea of wanting to start a team kind of happened by accident. I didn't really plan on starting a team. I wanted to go solo, sell as much as possible on my own, and then eventually expand if needed. But when I brought my first team member, my rule of thumb, and I still operate to this way, is let's grow only when we need help. Right. I think a lot of team leads as well get lost in the persona of, when you start a team, you just kind of kick your feet up, you give the leads, and you're like, all right, go sell, do your thing. But I'm sure you've noticed this too. When you've started your brokerage, if anything, it's brought more responsibility and more work. Right. And
well, people rely on you. Oh,
a lot of people rely on you now. Yeah. So right now we're a team of, I think, 4 or 5, including our transaction coordinator and myself. But the amount of responsibility that comes with it is definitely something that's been, a huge learning curve for me, because now I'm not only selling houses and I guess managing clients, but I'm also managing a team. And each one of my team members has to be managed differently.
Sure.
Right. I think we're doing well in the sense of like being able to hold a company standard of, hey, this is what the Martinez Group is about. This is how we operate, and this is non-negotiable. And I've been able to do that through, of course, just trial and error, right? I think one of the big parts of starting any company or a brokerage is company culture and establishing that, because that will make or break the company, evidently. But I've been able to, through a lot of trial and error again and mentorship, figure out this whole leadership thing, because it's definitely a new learning curve for me, right? Like my personal production has kind of slowed down, so I can help the team produce more on their own. But that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make at the end of the day to help the company or the team grow.
So you mentioned team values and core values. How did you organize yourself and therefore your team around the specific values? How did you determine what they are, and how does that look in your daily business?
Yeah. So before I started, right when I started the team, because, again, I started by accident, the first thing I went to is what makes a team operate at a standard that's high above in terms of like industry norms, right? And it comes down to core values and vision statements and all of that stuff. And I really went to the drawing board and I said, all right, what am I about? And I'm not talking like teamwork makes the dream work type of stuff. I'm like, genuinely speaking, like realistically speaking, what do I want the Martinez Group to be about? And I found core values, and I think this is very important for everyone to have, but that were to what I wanted all of us to be at our core, right? And I drafted a list of, I think it's 10 or 11 core values that our team operates on, and then a vision statement. And it took me maybe probably like 3 or 5 days to really knit it down into like, yeah, but that doesn't apply here. That's more personal. And then this applies to everything. And I was able to really look at that and say, hey, you know what? At the end of those 3 days, 5 days, this works. I think this is going to work really, really well. And then my formula in terms of like leading the team to hold a company culture or a team culture is, hey, let's lead off of these team values and core values to see how we can establish the company culture, the team culture. So whenever someone makes a mistake on the team, we go back to those core values. Hey, yeah, you messed up here. Where did we fall short on these core values? Oh, well, you cut a corner here. You compromised. That's one of our core values. What's the next thing we could do? Learn from your mistakes. That's another one of our core values. Let's just make sure we don't do that again, right? So in terms of finding and establishing our core values, I think a lot of teams and companies fall short on this, and they just want to be really, I don't know how to say it, like lazy, right? And they just kind of look up something on Google, teamwork makes the dream work, play to win, or whatever, and they just kind of put it up, and they don't believe in it, right? So if you don't believe in it, how is your team going to believe in it, right? And every single one of our team values and core values is something that we all truly believe in and that I believe in. And in order for my team to be able to adapt them, I have to lead by example, and I have to follow them.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So as we grow, and you've had awesome growth over these past few years, we all make mistakes. What are some lessons that you've learned in the past year and a half or so since you started your team that were maybe surprising to you, something that you didn't anticipate, but now from it you've grown from?
Yeah. Man, a lot of lessons learned in a very short amount of time, and I think the biggest lesson I've learned so far is that in terms of leadership, the best way to lead is to lead by example. I had like a curveball thrown at me late last year when I started to kind of grow the team. And it was, hey, how can I keep my team motivated, right? Like, I think it frustrates me a lot because I'm always running hot, right? Like I always, okay, boom, 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 let's go. But what if my team is not doing that, right? Why not?
Yeah.
Like we have everything we need. Why aren't you doing it as well? And that was something that was really frustrating to me. But I think the biggest lesson I took from that was, hey, in order for your team to run hot, you got to be leading by example, right? So the reason why your team's not running hot, Oscar, is because you're in Cancun right now.
Yeah.
Right? So let's come back. Let's get the team fired up. Let's establish again what our vision here is, and let's get them to running up really, really hot as well, right? Another thing that I learned as well was managing. Managing was like something I'm still learning, and I don't think I'm ever going to stop learning this. But
Completely.
Oh, yeah. And I think I had an expectation of the way I train this person, this agent, is going to be the same way I train this other agent. And it's just not true at all.
Yeah.
Some agents will learn something like this very quickly. Some other ones might need more hand-holding. Other ones are just extremely so easily coachable that I take like half the time on training them than anybody else. So one of the things that I've learned that's kind of like I guess like a breath of fresh air is like, hey, everyone's different. Yes, you trained this agent with a lot more like intensity because they needed it, but this agent that's coming up, it might be very different. So
Being prepared for that.
oh my goodness, yeah. And molding every single agent that comes in to the standard that we operate on the team is like something that I've also had to learn as well. Not everyone will, like I said, be managed to the same level. Some might come in and they just get it very quick. Other ones might come in and they might need some more work. But at the end of the day, having the intent to, hey, I'm going to mold you into the perfect real estate agent that we need to have you on the team for, I think is a huge lesson.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. It could be a 24/7 grind too. In real estate, there's always someone who wants to get at you or needs you and needs your help, and that's great. That's why we exist. But how do you manage that? How do you manage like a work-life balance within your personal life, but while still trying to grow your business and your team?
Yeah, I love this question, right? The work-life balance. I bought into the idea when I first got started that it doesn't exist, right? Trying to buy into a work-life balance, realistically speaking, even in your early 20s, it's going to set you up for failure, in my opinion, right? So I bought into the idea of like, hey, in my 20s, it's going to take a lot more time in terms of business than my personal life, and I'm willing to sacrifice that, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to have a life, right? So I look at my work-life balance in terms of where am I going to be in the next 5-10 years versus where am I going to be this weekend, and is my girlfriend going to be mad at me because I got home really late last night and I'm going to be home late again tonight, right? I think a big part of this as well is being able to have some type of like schedule, right? Because like you said, we're on the clock 24/7. Everyone needs you all the time. But if you're able to have a type of like schedule with different blocks, right? Like from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., I'm doing admin work. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., I have this going on. And then from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., I'm out on the field. And then from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., I'm doing this at home. That kind of relieves the pressure because now you have some type of schedule versus, okay, what do I got going on today? Oh my God, I got to do this, and you're just so unorganized.
I think that's an important lesson that it takes them a while to learn in this business. And that you mentioned it earlier that like this is a business. You are starting it by getting your real estate license. You're starting a business.
Yeah.
And so you don't have a boss necessarily. You've got to be your own boss. And sometimes that calendar can be your boss.
Yeah.
But then you still have to listen to your boss.
Exactly.
Or else you could fire yourself.
Right.
So I know that time blocking is an important piece of being a successful business owner.
Yeah.
And in this case, real estate. How long did it take you to get into time blocking or really acting as a business instead of just someone who has a real estate license?
Yeah, so I think the whole time blocking thing, I've just always been really organized with really everything. And I think the reason why I do that is because I don't like not knowing what to expect. Yeah. Right? So I kind of just built that habit of like, okay, what am I doing here and there and whatnot? But in terms of like switching avenues from, hey, I'm a real estate agent with a real estate license to, hey, this is a business I'm operating, was around 2022 when my team lead was like, hey, this is exactly the systems that we use on the team. This is the protocol we follow. This is when you make the calls. This is when you follow up with the leads. These are the conversion. Well, he didn't teach me conversion systems, but this is why conversion systems are important. And that's when I was like, all right, let's do 1 + 1 is here. We have the content, the time blocking. And then in terms of operating this as a business, let's just fill the time blocks with that stuff, right? So now I have an actual calendar to follow. And I follow my calendar religiously. I always say if it's not on my calendar, it's not getting done. And that's something that I've also, of course, taught the team. I talked to you about this, a service called Use Motion. It's an AI calendar. And we've been able to literally like almost have, like you said, your own boss. Like AI is your boss telling you what you have to do next. Yeah. And that just keeps me like fired up because, okay, well, I'm never being unproductive. I always have something to do. Right. Well,
that's great. I want to change gears a little bit and talk a little bit about mentorship.
Yeah.
You're someone who experienced mentorship as someone who had a mentor, and now you are mentoring agents as well. What are some lessons that you've learned on both sides of that coin?
Yeah. I think mentorship is something that's very, very important. Right?
I agree.
When I was on a team, I I don't want to say I had it for free because, there's a cost to it, but being able to have a mentorship to teach you, hey, this is the way to operate a real estate business was so big because it saved me so much time and lessons and heartache in terms of just, okay, this is what's worked for this guy. He's been really, really successful at it. I need to take this seriously. And then I've been able to apply those same strategies into my team on the back end of things that's been able to keep us operating smoothly. But now in terms of like training my agents to be the agents they want to be, it comes down to leadership, right? So you have to have a different types of mentorship in terms of I need to be able to be taught how to be a leader. And that can either be taught through just time of me messing up and eventually figuring out, or going out of my way and finding mentorship to figure out how to be a leader. So recently I've joined a mentorship program with Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. And it's called Arate Syndicate, and they talk about this stuff. And it's helped me so much in terms of like, okay, this is how you operate a team. This is how you operate a team at the standard you want. And this is exactly how a successful company operates with a really good company culture. Let's apply this now. So I'm a huge advocate now of exactly what mentorship is, can do for you.
Sure.
Because realistically speaking, no one wants to pay for mentorship because it's expensive, right? But I believe if you're able, look at it like this, right? If I wanted to start a real estate brokerage right now and I had no idea how to do it, I could just try to figure it out on my own and eventually just figure it out, like I said, through error. I come to you and say, hey, man, how much are you willing to charge me to teach me how to operate a successful brokerage? Or can you help me out here, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm not looking at it in terms of like, hey, how much is this going to cost me, right? Like, are you going to charge me a lot? I'm looking at it in terms of time.
And what's the value to that?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you can help me get there in 2 years instead of 10 years or 8 years, I'll pay whatever you want,
right?
But mentorship is super beneficial in terms of like how much time it can save you.
Yes.
And I think that's how people really need to be looking at mentorship now.
Yeah.
Instead of, it's going to cost me maybe $12,000 and that's way too much, versus, hey, I'm going to get there in 1 year instead of 5.
And what is that $12,000 going to cost me over 5 years versus the 1 year in which, okay, now I'm accelerating through someone because there's always someone who's been there and done that and they want to teach.
Yeah.
And locking in on that and finding that, and then the acceleration and the jet fuel that gives to your business is extraordinary. And I feel like, I know for me personally, like I needed a coach a long time before I had one.
Yeah.
And I still have a coach, and that for me has been life changing. And so, I always, even like, I mentor people every day. That's a huge part of what I do. But you always will need someone who can mentor you, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that realization for me was huge, and I'll never look back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present. Let's talk about the future. What's in the plans for you? Are you going to have a 50 agent team? Are you happy where you're at? Do you not know? What does the next year look like, and what does the next 5 years look like for you and your team?
Yeah. So, in terms of like size of the team, I'm still going to follow very strictly let's only hire when we need the help, right? Because of course, bringing on more people, of course, there's overhead, right? There's expenses to that, and in terms of growing the team, I'm just going to do it with time when we need the help. As far as plans for the remainder of this year, I have a really, really like strong purpose to make my agents achieve the goals that they have on their list that we did in January of this year.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how I can help them in every single way possible to have that. Do you need more leads? Do you need help in here? Do you need help with the content creation? Like, how can I help in that sense? And then in terms of like actual team goals for the year, we have a certain number in place as far as units and volume, what we want to do. I think realistically speaking, though, one of my big goals that I have for the team that I actually just got was to be able to be put on the, top 100 on the Real Producers magazine. I saw you were just on that, by the way. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's definitely like one of the goals I have right now. I think by the grace of God, maybe within the next 2 years.
You're going to get
right?
there.
Yeah, I hope so. We're working hard. Got a long way to go, but that's definitely like something that I have on the top of the on top of the list. 5 years, I see the team growing, right? I have agents that reach out to me here and they're like, hey man, like Do you have space? What's required? In terms of size and scalability, it just depends on our production, right? So if I'm able to hit the top 100 and we're doing close to 100 units a year, okay, yeah, we definitely need some more help. So we'll see how that goes. But in terms of where I see the team going, my number one goal would be definitely top 100 on the Real Producers magazine, and helping the team achieve the goals that they have on their list that they gave me in January of this year is the biggest priority I have right now.
Love it. And what about, down the line, even in the future, what's a legacy you would love to leave here in Columbus?
Yeah, I want to get into development.
Okay.
You know, I love the new construction, right? A sense of residential real estate, but I love the sense of multifamily, right? Like building the apartment buildings, or maybe being like a builder, right? Maybe going on the avenue that Bob Webb has gone through, right? If you look at Bob Webb and the values that they withhold in their company, it's like cutting no corners whatsoever and having every single thing done the right way. To the way the screws on their light fixtures are facing, it's like a specific way, every single thing. And I look at them in terms of like, if I were to start a construction company or like a premier home builder in Columbus, I want to follow that path, right? And be able to build something that way as well. So as far as legacy for my last name, the Martinez Group, or Oscar Martinez, I can definitely see myself eventually diving into the development area of residential real estate or multifamily real estate.
I love that. What I'm hearing is reputation. Yeah. Your reputation is everything. And I think that shines through in this entire conversation. And that is something that is very important to you. And I think that anyone that knows you would agree and would say that that is something that you work on every day to uphold. And that's so important in this business. So I commend you on that.
Thank you. It's important.
It is. Well, where can our listeners and followers find you?
Yeah, as far as social media, I'm on Instagram, Oscar M_Realtor. Website for browsing houses online, martinezhouses.com. And that's probably where you'll find me most. Yeah, I'm on Instagram all the time, on Facebook as well, Oscar Martinez Realtor. But Instagram is where you'll find us for sure, Oscar M_Realtor. And I just started a team Instagram page. I think it's Martinez Group _Ohio. That thing's like blank 000 nothing. I have a goal.
It's a new opportunity for you.
Oh yeah. I'm excited. One of my favorite things is building something from scratch. So I wanna test this out and see how I can take that Instagram page from zero
with all the lessons you've learned.
Oh yeah, like, hey, in terms of content creation, this does the best. Let's apply it here. I kid you not. On Sunday, I was at home on my desk. Hey, these are the 3 types of content that I'm going to be producing every single week to post on this page. And let's not try to use any crazy production, right? Let's just do it on the iPhone and see if it works. So cool. That's going to be exciting.
Well, I look forward to seeing you grow it.
Yeah, thank you.
And I want to thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your story. Of course. I've heard a lot of it, but I always enjoy it. It's unique and it's great, and you're going to do big things, so I'm excited to watch.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, man.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So that's a wrap on today's episode of Columbus Brick by Brick. I want to give a huge thanks to Oscar Martinez for joining us and sharing such an honest, energized look at what it takes to build not just a brand, but lasting impact here in Columbus real estate. From starting solo to scaling a thriving team, building with cultural connection and community commitment, Oscar's story reminds us that great businesses are built on people, purpose, and persistence. So whether it was the power of mentorship, the behind-the-scenes hustle, or the vision for what's next, there's no doubt Oscar is helping shape the future of this city, brick by brick. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a comment or a review, and share it with someone who's passionate about real estate or entrepreneurship. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Columbus Brick by Brick, and check out our website at columbusbrickbybrick.com. I want to thank you again for listening to Columbus Brick by Brick, where every brick has a story, and we're here to tell it. We'll see you next time.